If you had the opportunity to get into a time machine and travel back in time, when and where would you go? You might want to check out ancient Egypt in 2500 BCE to observe the construction of the pyramids, or India in 600 BCE to meet the Buddha and hear his teachings firsthand, or Rome at the height of its empire to see the Colosseum in all its splendor. One place you probably wouldn't want to visit would be first century Galilee. There was no middle class in that time and place. There were only the elites who possessed wealth, social status, and political power, and who made up 3% of the population. Or there were the non-elites who made up the rest of society. The non-elites were people who owned little or no land and thus often worked the land as tenants of the wealthy landowners. Most rural people in ancient times lived at a subsistence level, constantly in danger of hunger or starvation if their crops failed. Taxes were high. After all, someone had to pay for the construction of that Colosseum. And the penalties for failure to repay a debt were brutal. A debtor, along with his family, might be sold as a slave. And there was always tension between the Roman occupying force and the Jews they were oppressing. Uprisings were common, as were reports of would-be messiahs. The historian Josephus tells us that the Romans reacted with the massacre of thousands of the followers of these so-called messiahs. This is the world we would be entering if we were to visit first century Galilee. Essentially, a world without hope. And it's the only world that Mary knew when Gabriel visited her with the news that she would give birth to Jesus. But the dialogue between her and the angel were more than just that. She was being given the opportunity to partner with God in giving birth to hope. And it occurs to me that our own world could use a bit of hope, too. We also live in a world of economic disparity, a world in which CEOs make obscene salaries while the homeless population continues to grow, a world in which there are higher rates of chronic disease and premature death among racial and ethnic minorities compared to the rates among whites, a world in which white boys are exonerated of murder they committed, and black men spend 43 years in prison before being released for murders they didn't commit. We also live in a world that is short on hope. So maybe God is inviting us to join Mary in giving birth to hope. Maybe we are being asked to partner with God in bringing hope to those who inhabit the bottom of the hierarchies. It sounds like a daunting and intimidating thing to ask of us, as it would have, no doubt, sounded to Mary. But there are some things that Gabriel said to Mary to prepare her for the task that was before her, things I think we might also benefit from. First, he said Mary was favored. In fact, he said it more than once. We often think we have to do something to earn the favor of another person. If we buy an expensive gift, maybe they will favor us with their love and affection. Or maybe we'll find favor with the boss if we work extra hours. We've been taught that society treats us with favor based on our income, zip code, or level of education. And that concept bleeds into our spiritual life when we try to curry God's favor with our faithful prayers, our daily Bible study, and our committed Sunday morning worship attendance. But there's nothing to indicate Mary had done anything to receive favor from God. Over the years, legend would place her on a pedestal and paint her with purity and blamelessness. But our text does not indicate that there was anything special about her. And yet, she was favored. And so are you and I. Regardless of our social status or the color of our skin, we are favored by God. Regardless of our sexual orientation or sexual identity or sexual expression, God favors us. Regardless of what you may have been told by others, you are favored. And if we're to bring hope into the world, we must understand that God favors us and by extension favors the rest of the world too. Gabriel also told Mary not to be afraid. She may have lived in fear, but so do you and I. Continued fear of COVID, fear of the police, fear of extremism, fear of Russia, fear of the existential threat of climate change. We live in a world that uses fear to control and silence us. Religion uses fear of eternal damnation to manipulate the masses. Politicians use fear of the other political party to get elected. But if we have any intention of partnering with God to bring hope into the world, we must find a way to let go of our fears. It may mean being more selective with our news sources, or it may mean spending less time on social media if that contributes to our fears. Maybe spending more time searching for the goodness in others. Or it may mean reducing any tendency to self-isolate. Or it may mean simply remembering to breathe. Deep, life-giving, calming breaths. But we can't expect to bring hope into a world if we ourselves are filled with fear. And finally, Gabriel told Mary that God was with her. If Mary needed any reassurance about the future that lay before her, it was the reminder that God was with her. We forget that sometimes, don't we? We feel as if we're flying solo much of the time and rarely give thought to the fact that God is with us. God is with us, and God cares about what we are going through. One of my favorite Bible verses of encouragement is when God speaks through the prophet Isaiah saying, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you." Gabriel tells Mary to be assured that she is favored by God, to let go of any fears she might have, and to remember that God is always with her. Once she was able to do these things, she was in a position to partner with God in bringing hope into the world. Despite her position at the bottom of the social hierarchies of her day, she was now being invited to co-create with God, to partner with God in giving birth to hope. Harvey Milk, who was a visionary civil and human rights leader who became one of the first openly gay elected officials in the United States, knew about the importance of hope. In one of his speeches, he talked about young people who were coming out of the closet saying, the only thing they have to look forward to is hope. And you have to give them hope. Hope for a better world, hope for a better tomorrow, hope for a better place to come to if the pressures at home are too great, hope that all will be all right. Without hope, Not only gays, but the blacks, the seniors, the handicapped, the us's. The us's will give up. May you and I accept God's invitation to bring hope to the us's in the world. May we join Mary in giving birth to hope for a better tomorrow. Amen.